Welcome to Accelerate Your Hybrid Cloud with VMware Cloud on AWS. This is the What's New session. My name is Oren Root, Product Management from VMware.
And I'm Jake Robinson, Senior Product Manager. This is the standard disclaimer slide. If nobody's ever, of course you've read it, right? But if nobody's ever sort of boiled it down for you, we're going to be talking about some features today that are in preview, so they're not widely available yet. They may not become standard features. They may not ever exist. So don't buy VMware services or licenses based on what we're going to talk about today that's in preview, and certainly don't buy VMware stock just based on the stuff that we're talking about today.
Okay, so about a year and 3 months ago, we were standing here and announcing our initial availability of the service in Oregon. And it's been a year, and we've delivered a bunch more regions and features, and it's been a very exciting year for us. And we owe a lot of this to our customers and partners here in the room and around the globe. Thank you very much for being on this journey with us. To recap, the service, VMware Cloud on AWS, is a jointly engineered solution between really the best minds in AWS and at VMware, giving you the best of both worlds: cloud, elasticity from cloud, the agility of cloud, along with the familiar tools, the consistent operations from the familiar vSphere and the full SDDC stack, including vSAN, NSX, and vCenter. Because these are the familiar interfaces, all the third-party tools just work, and all of your tools, your internal tools, just work, because this is, again, just vSphere. We've delivered really a hybrid cloud with this, with features such as hybrid link mode with vCenter, and supporting large-scale application migrations with HCX. This is delivered on top of AWS's bare metal next-gen infrastructure regionally. So we will deliver the service wherever AWS has regions. And the interesting piece here is that it also provides integration and the ability to utilize AWS services directly from the SDDC, using a special connection between the SDDC and your VPC on AWS that provides a low latency, high bandwidth connection to these services with no cross AZ charges. This service is delivered, supported, sold by VMware and its partners. If you have an issue, you call VMware or you chat with VMware. In this session, we're going to talk about the overview of the service, talk a little bit about the vision of the company and where we're going. Then we're going to deep dive into the what's new, really the features that we have, the new features that we've released. And then we're going to leave you with how to get started. Links, QR codes that you can actually get started and onboard yourself onto the service today. So our vision, if you heard Pat's keynote today, that hasn't really changed in the past few years. Really, it's any cloud, on any app, any device, with intrinsic security built in each of those layers. Pat talked about this today. We take security very seriously. And again, this is a vision that has guided us in the past few years and continues to guide us. Taking this one step further into the infrastructure vision, we have customers that run on our regions on VMware Cloud on AWS, running their own data centers. More and more we're seeing edge locations come into the picture, or using our cloud partners. And really our vision really is to make sure that it doesn't matter whether your workloads are running on-prem, in the cloud, on one of our 4,000 plus VCPP providers, or on the edge locations. Really, VMware is the only company that's positioned to offer a globally consistent infrastructure based on vSphere with globally consistent operations that's delivered as a service, really making our customers future-proof to wherever the infrastructure, whatever stack that will come up in the future. And we support traditional apps as well as cloud-native applications. And you've heard all the announcements today about Kubernetes. If you think back, we just turned 20 this year, and we started our infrastructure journey with the hypervisor 20 years ago that was revolutionary at the time. And as it abstracted the hardware and brought software into play, we realized that we need a control plane for that. So our next generation has brought in vCenter, along with vMotion, HA, FT, DRS. Features were also revolutionary at the time. Fast forward to 6 years ago, Mark Andreessen has had the article on the Wall Street Journal with software will eat the world. And our interpretation of this was the SDDC. We've announced the SDDC about 6 years ago at VMworld. And really this takes virtualization in the next level, adding vSAN, virtualized storage, and virtualized networking with NSX. And that also has transformed the data center. And now today, we've come to the point where we're really looking to take the hybrid strategy into the hybrid vision into the next level, really offering a consistent control plane, consistent operations across the SDDCs wherever they are, wherever they're deployed, with a service that offers really consistent operations across all these SDDCs, across all these stacks. With the secret sauce is really the virtual cloud network powered by NSX, with all the differentiated features that NSX provides, along with the new ones that Pat has mentioned today, and our recent acquisition of VMware Cloud that takes the SD-WAN technology and optimizes your remote branch offices. So with VMware Cloud on AWS, we've been innovating at a really fast pace. And one of the advantages that this does, one of the side effects that innovating in this pace has is that we're releasing newer and newer versions of the SDDC into the cloud, getting feedback and iterating with customers, and all that ends up being packaged into our on-prem software. So our on-prem software actually is getting a lot better because of the cloud delivery model of that software. So in the past year and few months, we've delivered over 200 features. We have, by the end of this month, we'll have 8 regions globally. Pretty much in every area of the world, there's a region that we support with over 25 availability zones. The availability zones are separate facilities, and they're like 2 or 3 milliseconds from each other. We've had about 14 pushes of SDDC. That means about a major upgrade every quarter for the SDDC, and a minor or patch every month. And we've been doing those upgrades, not customers. Right? That TCO has gone away from customers, and VMware now owns it. This is part of the service. So we do those upgrades and patches, making sure that our customers get the latest and greatest at no additional cost to the customers and no TCO. We've upped our SLA to 4 nines with our stretch clusters that basically provides the ability to run a stretch vSAN cluster on top of 2 separate AZs, 2 availability zones, having resiliency to AZ failure without actually re-architecting the application. So if an AZ fails, your VM is going to restart on the second AZ. So that's our 4 nines. And we've taken customer experience really to the next level. We've put this at the front of the service, not just in the UI and API consistency, but also in the time it takes to deploy a full SDDC. That used to be, up to a week ago, used to be 2 hours, which is also pretty cool. We've taken it down to about 80, 90 minutes. And that's deploying the bare metal infrastructure, putting the full SDDC stack on this, logical networks, everything ready to actually vCenter, to actually put on the workloads and start working. On-prem, it takes, I don't know, like 12 weeks. And you have to deal with the supplier and real estate and network team and the storage team. And with VMware Cloud on AWS, you do this over lunch. In addition, this is cloud, and so it's extensible. So you can add a host in about 10, 12 minutes. That means that our customers can run the clusters really hot. If on-prem, you have to run at low utilization to make sure you have that spare capacity. In the cloud, you don't, because you have additional capacity at the tip of your fingers. And if you need that additional capacity, you can just tap into it, and we'll add into the cluster, and you can move your workloads onto it. And you can take this to high-level features like the elastic DRS that we've recently announced, that will, based on your policies, automatically scale up the cluster, up or shrink it down, again, based on your policies and needs. We also have added chat support into the built into the product itself. And this is, I've added it myself back in the initial availability days, and our product team actually supported it initially. We didn't really have a team around this, and our customers loved it so much, so we actually built a team around this, and you actually have the tech support engineering team staffing the chat and providing response within 39 seconds, right? So like under a minute, you get response. And that's like if you compare this to, and you still have access to creating SRs and phone calls, but the instant gratification of having somebody there, identifying the problem with you immediately and offering a solution is something that our customers love. And they rate us for this with our 96% support satisfaction that we don't take lightly. And we actually are working to continuously improve that. We've just announced our new in-product support experience. So in addition to chat that's embedded into that support widget, we also have contextual intelligence search. So wherever you are in the application, depending on what workflow you actually are doing, the content is going to adjust itself and propose topics. When customers search for help, we'll actually be pulling from KB articles, from the documentation, from the help, from the communities, and making sure that all the content is surfaced in the application without leaving the application. We've added support for creating and managing SRs directly from within the application, and community support that's staffed by the same tech support engineers that staff the chat and SRs, as well as VMware experts around the world. In addition, we have the service health, always in the chat widget, in the support widget, and you can subscribe to alerts and notifications. I don't think we've ever seen a service at VMware that has had so much uptake so quickly. We've roughly doubled the number of customers on the platform every quarter. And we have customers from every vertical, really. We have financial institutions, we have healthcare, we have education. And if last year we talked about use cases based on what customers were telling us, conversation with customers, this year we're actually talking about use cases that are driven by what customers actually are doing on the platform. So data center extension, really we see those customers who burst or expand to cloud or utilize regions where they don't have a data center. We have bursting of VDI. We have test dev that's either burst or completely moving test dev onto the cloud. And it's also easy if your production is on-prem, because you can move these workloads back from test dev environment to on-prem and they'll be compatible. And then disaster recovery is kind of a table stakes use case for this. But what's interesting is we've seen customers that not only have added DR for like tier 2 and tier 3 workloads that they didn't have DR before, because we have within the service we offer VMware site recovery built in. So it makes it really easy to add DR, to add protection to your VMs. We've also seen customers that didn't have a DR plan actually take and add new DR. And we've seen a lot of cases where customers didn't want to renew, refresh the infrastructure where the contract was about to expire, and instead they just moved their DR to VMware Cloud on AWS. From cloud migrations, we've seen what was interesting is that we've not only seen application-specific migrations like Oracle RAC doesn't work on AWS, but it does work on VMware Cloud on AWS, right? Moving SAP HANA but what we've seen here is also like full data center evacuations, right? We expected to see some data center consolidations. We've seen a lot of those, but we've also seen full data center evacuations, and some of them happening really, really quickly. Short time frame, contracts up, and instead of renewing, they just evacuated everything and moved to VMware Cloud on AWS. And because of the operational consistency, it just makes it so easy to move to cloud. And then lastly, we've seen the next-gen applications. So application modernization that uses those AWS services that we talked about. But seeing these new hybrid type applications where the VMs, applications running in VMware are just using S3 or adding RDS to the application. And we've also seen new types of hybrid applications that part of the application is running on-prem, like the DB tier, and the app tier is running on VMware Cloud and AWS, and then other parts of the application are using AWS natively or cloud services or services from AWS. And with this offering, customers can actually string all these together and create this new type of hybrid application. I wanted to talk to you about two specific customer examples that we've had of customers that found immense value in VMware Cloud on AWS. One is Stagecoach. It's a leading public transportation company in the UK. They run about 11,000 trains and buses and have about 3 million passengers daily. And they had a business critical application that monitors the location of the fleet every 30 seconds. And they wanted to move this to the cloud, but there's obviously a lot of risk involved in rewriting an application. And so they mitigated that risk by moving to our stretch clusters, move that business critical application to our stretch clusters that's AZ resilient and uses a lot of storage. And they were able to mitigate that risk by just not converting, not doing any rework of the application. So a lot of rework is going away. And then another example is PHH Mortgage. It's one of the largest US outsources of home loans. They work with everything from small banks to large financial institutions. And their challenge was they wanted to consolidate multiple businesses under one umbrella. And they also they wanted to avoid their DR data center contract renewal. And so what they ended up doing is replacing their existing DR solution and getting rid of 3 data centers, consolidating them, and moving over 350 VMs to VMware Cloud on AWS. So next, we want to talk about the what's new, what we've recently announced. And so just to set the frame, so when we're looking at feature availability, available means you can buy it, you can use it right now. Preview means it's available to select customers. You can ask, but it may not make it to available. Developing means we're actively working on it, but there's no guarantee it will move to preview. And planned means it's on the roadmap, may or may not make it to developing. on a very high level, just paint the high level of what we're going to talk about is this is the first time that we've actually released support for multiple regions in a quarter. We've done one traditionally every quarter, and we're going to add three this month, 4 by the end of the quarter, and the support that we'll add by the end of this month is going to be in the Dublin region, in Ohio and Northern California. And the new high-capacity storage option backed by AWS Elastic Block Store that allows to expand storage without expanding compute. The 50% lower entry price, really a starter cluster that's 3-node instead of a 4-node. On top of this, we have a promotion that pay for only 2 and use 3. And accelerated migration, being able to accelerate thousands of VMs with Cloud Motion with HCX. And then some features and capabilities that allow optimizing application licensing that Jake will talk about deeply. And then full support for AWS Direct Connect with microsegmentation with NSX. So we'll talk about the features in 3 buckets: the rapid migration, secure and hybridity, and future-proofing your application. So Jake will take it over from here.
Thank you, Warren. All right. This is going to be a roller coaster ride. Got a lot of features to cover. As Warren mentioned before, we're iterating very fast. Customers are giving us feedback, and we're iterating that to make the service better and better and better. So he mentioned the 3 strategies, the first one being rapidly migrating your infrastructure. And we're going to start with regions. So based on customer demand, we've been working very closely with AWS to get these different regions online with their metal instances or hosts, really. Oren mentioned that Ireland is coming to Europe later this month. In Europe right now, we also have London and Frankfurt. So we want our customers to be able to operate both locally in your region, could be for compliance reasons or whatever, but also globally for scale. So as a sysadmin, I was part of a company that adopted infrastructure as a service or cloud very early on. And man, I had a hard time with 2 very crucial things when setting up the cloud. The first was VPN connectivity, sort of that hybrid cloud. Like, how do I get my stuff over here to communicate with stuff over here? Anybody familiar with setting up IPsec VPNs? Diffie-Hellman, perfect forward secrecy? Anybody troubleshoot for over an hour like on that? Yeah, this guy knows right here. That's my network guy. So that was one big problem, like getting that initial connectivity set up. The second part was like a physics problem, like how do I get this 500 gigabyte database virtual machine from here to here? Like, never underestimate the power of the bandwidth of tapes in a station wagon sort of thing, right? It's like how do I get that over here without any downtime whatsoever? So there was a migration issue. So HCX looks to solve all of this problem. It's brilliant. I wish I had this 10 years ago. The first thing that it's going to do for me is abstract that infrastructure, the network connectivity. It's going to automatically set up the VPN connectivity for me. So we don't have to worry about like spending hours and hours of troubleshooting that anymore. Just click the button and it works. The second thing that HCX is doing for me is that app mobility. So the problem of getting that, probably today we're talking about, a terabyte virtual machine from point A to point B. HCX is going to use vSphere replication to get that over, and then with the cherry on top of minimal downtime. It's exciting, right? Again, I wish I had this 10 years ago. We continue to work with Amazon, AWS, on getting the latest and greatest best-in-class hardware for running vSphere on in the cloud. The new R5 metal instances that are in preview right now have 48 cores and 768 gig of RAM. Like, is my boss in here? Can I get a home lab? No? No, he's not in here. Okay, we'll talk to him later. Not only that, but the R5 Metal allows storage expansion for some of those data-heavy workloads that you might have into Amazon EBS. So you've got those big database machines, sort of storage-heavy virtual machines. The R5 Metal instances, a cluster of R5 Metal might be right up your alley. So we talk a lot about the use case of disaster recovery inside VMware Cloud on AWS. It's one of my favorite use cases. One of the challenges that we've had, one of the feedback points that we've got is, man, four host clusters are just a little too big to get started out. We want to minimize sort of the daily, monthly cost of our disaster recovery run rate when we're not failing over. And then we want to grow to maximum size later on. So we want more elasticity from small to big. And Pat might have mentioned this morning in the keynote, but we've now decreased the minimum cluster size from 4 hosts to 3 hosts. And for limited time up to February 1st of 2019, we're offering the cost of 2 hosts for a 3-host cluster. Did I say that right? Okay. Good. So if you've got some of that DR budget that you're looking to soak up this year, now is the time to do it. There are some software suites that will go unnamed. I think that their legal department is actually bigger than their development department, but they may require a limited core count for their particular software suite to run. So in order to make it possible for you to run that stuff on VMware Cloud on AWS, we have in preview right now custom CPU core counts. This allows you to limit the amount of CPU cores inside your SDDC cluster to match what you need for any software licensing agreements. And now a word from our sponsor. If you get vSphere Platinum. Is there a date on this? No. If you get vSphere Platinum, we are including $10,000 worth of VMware Cloud on AWS credits. So if you act now, you will be able to get, what does that equate to in euro? Do we have that?
It's about 87.50.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah. Nice, nicely done. So, again, vSphere Platinum, fairly easy upgrade. You get VMware App Defense, but you also get those $10,000 in credits, 87.50 euro. Okay, now back to our regularly scheduled program. When I am running in a hybrid environment, there may be cases where part of my application I want to run on-prem for cost or resiliency purposes, and then the other part of the application I want in the cloud for expandability and stuff like that. But there might be bandwidth limitations, bandwidth constraints between those two clouds, right? So a lot of times we see what happens, the term over the last 10 years, I think, has been data gravity, right? So wherever the data is, all of the applications and stuff sort of gravitate to that. So AWS Direct Connect provides you that low latency, high bandwidth pipe to connect your on-prem and VMware Cloud on AWS SDDCs. And it now has full NSX integration with Direct Connect as well. So there's no more worrying about those bandwidth constraints, especially during migration. You want as much bandwidth as possible to get your apps over there. I mentioned with HCX and the difficulty with setting up VPNs, and I've been on both sides of that. Man, I have some PTSD over it, I think. We'll have to talk about that later. I'll see my counselor. NSX has been making VPN really easy to set up. So not only do we have deployment through some BGP routing, but increasing resiliency through dual home tunnels. And then also we're continually looking at new technologies to increase the throughput and performance of those. Okay, so that is sort of the hybrid experience. We're going to move on to some of the new security features that we have in VMware Cloud on AWS. Managing encryption keys is an absolute pain, right? It doesn't have to be. We really need to, just make the tools better for working with data encryption. We have to encrypt our data. We've got all these regulations around data, and we continually to work with AWS to improve this sort of thing. It's our commitment to you to do that. And you can now use the integration between AWS KMS and vSAN to encrypt all of your data. Super cool feature. How many people have ever blamed the network? Yeah. Lots of network PTSD around here. Microsegmentation with NSX and these application-specific policies are amazing. We've always had network policies, we've always had security policies, and we've always had applications. And what NSX is really doing is bringing those two things together. So you're able to move not just the application, but the security policy together within the VMware SDDCs. This is really amazing for, this is a step forward for sort of software-defined applications and infrastructure. With this, no more finger pointing. It's the network, it's the application. This is bringing those two teams together. And speaking of finger pointing, packet logs always tell the truth, right? Whether it's the app communicating on a port that they didn't tell you about, or it's a firewall rule that's actually blocking that application. This is going to help you troubleshoot that sort of stuff. So both on the edge and the distributed firewalls, we're now actually shipping packet logs to log intelligence. So you can configure to see all of that, which is super cool. This is a great example of us taking feedback that we've gotten from our customers and implementing this. Everybody has their favorite third-party backup or logging tool that they like to work with, and this feature actually makes it easier to bring your favorite third-party tools into VMware Cloud on AWS. What we've done here is we've allowed communication from your SDDCs to actually, those third-party tools to actually communicate with the management infrastructure. So if you have infrastructure tools that integrate in with vSphere, with vCenter, this, I don't have a laser on here, but the north-south between the cloud gateway and the management gateway is open for you to take some of those third-party tools and integrate them in very nicely. Integrate them with tools that you already know and love. So again, that goes back to, I don't want to change my behavior. I don't want to change something that I love and we're good at. I want the architecture to fit me. I mentioned log intelligence. This is now a core service. You get this with your SDDCs. So you can configure log intelligence to report on all sorts of things, including monitoring and alerting. And again, if you have one of those third-party tools, logging tools, you can actually set up log forwarding from log intelligence to your favorite third-party tool as well. We all know and love identity management, right? And a service that has its own identity management is a pain. So we've obviously brought the ability for you to bring your own identity management. So this is fairly straightforward. If you run AD and you want to utilize that for logins into your VMware infrastructure, we have that in preview. Excuse me. What am I looking at here? Oh, sorry. Saw vCenter Cloud Gateway. Everybody loves hybrid link mode. Is anybody using hybrid link mode today? Okay, got a couple hands. Hybrid link mode allows you to see all of your data centers in a single pane of glass. Some people might be uncomfortable with your AD credentials actually being used for your VMware Cloud SDDC. And what vCenter Cloud Gateway does is it's an appliance that lives on-prem, and then it manages that connection for your hybrid link mode. So if you're not using VMware Cloud on AWS today, this is a great way to safely connect your two environments. Hybrid link mode is super cool. You can do just being able to see all of your data centers in a single pane of glass is really awesome. We talk a lot about elasticity and VMware Site Recovery in preview right now. I mentioned those R5.metal instances. You can actually, with Site Recovery, actually use those R5.metal instances for a new cluster to expand to. So you're getting best of breed hardware when you fail over. Site recovery, if you're looking at consolidating a few different sort of disaster recovery solutions, VMware Site Recovery now scales up to 1,000 virtual machines per SDDC. So if you've got virtual machines being backed up to another on-prem site and then some to cloud and stuff like that, you can consolidate this now all to a single SDDC in VMware Cloud on AWS. We love our relationships. As a customer, I loved my relationships with third party. I loved using the right tool for the job. I loved working with VMware, and we want to continue growing those relationships, not just for partners in the community, but also for you. We want you to bring your favorite third-party tools and companies with you. We want you to keep those relationships. So we're continually growing this partner-ready list. So if there's one you don't see up there, we want to know about it. We want to work with them, especially if you're a VMware Cloud and AWS customer. Talk to your people over there, and let's get them on this list. All right, now we're going to talk about like super future stuff. Now we're getting into like software is eating the world sort of level stuff. More and more companies have their own development teams, and they're using software as a strategic advantage in the market, right? So a lot of this will cover how we can help our developers inside of our own organizations get things done on VMware Cloud and AWS. But first, let's talk about compute policies. Throwing things in the cloud is not always simple and straightforward. In our vSphere environments, we might have some special needs in terms of how the virtual machines themselves run and what hosts they run on and stuff like that. So that's where compute policies come into play. So there's really three major compute policy previews that we're bringing to you. The first one is VMware Host Affinity. So if I have an application that, for maybe licensing purposes, needs to live on a single host, so maybe an app and a DB virtual machine need to live together, could be for bandwidth constraints or whatever, the VM Host Affinity policy allows you to always keep those virtual machines together. So if DRS wants to migrate the application to another host, both of those VMs go together. So that's one. People are already familiar with this probably in their vSphere environment, but we're bringing this to the cloud as well. I don't think anybody else is doing this.
And just to add, I think the main advantage here is, as Jake mentioned, there's some softwares that require licensing per host. So this allows you to keep the VMs on a specific license host. So if you license like the N+1 host that you want for this specific type of software, you get to keep your VMs over there. And we'll only violate this in case the host crashes.
VM anti-affinity, this is great for sort of those cloud native applications. So you might have a horizontally scaled application. So you want the front end for the application here, 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 and here on 4 different hosts. You don't want them all sort of lumped into one host. If you lose that host, you lose the entire application. So the anti-affinity allows you to keep virtual machines separate. So another great example is like database replication, witness server, stuff like that. You can set the rule to say, I need a database server here, and a witness server over here. It's great. For those poor legacy applications that are maybe vMotion sensitive, you can also disable the automatic DRS vMotion. So if we've got something that's a little fragile that you want to keep, on a specific host, only in emergencies move it over, the disabling DRS vMotion is for you. All right. Horizon 7 is super cool for a couple different reasons. So first of all, they're using the instant clone technology to spin desktops up in less than 2 seconds. So I don't have to manage like pools of powered on virtual machines all the time, soaking up resources, when instant clone technology can just fire up that virtual machine for that user in like literally less than 2 seconds, 1 to 2 second average. It's amazing. The second thing with Horizon 7 and integration with VMware Cloud on AWS is I'm not constrained to fire up those desktops just in my on-prem environment, but I can fire them up on VMware Cloud on AWS as well. So things like weekend workers, things like seasonal workers, times where I need more desktops. This is amazing technology. Speaking of my seasonal workers, anybody in retail might really love this feature. When we bring on more employees and stuff like that, we might have a huge seasonal desktop workload, right? And Horizon 7 can automatically scale up VMware Cloud on AWS clusters to accommodate more desktops. So we can, instead of laying out capital for more bare metal servers in our own data center, we can only pay for what we need in VMware Cloud on AWS and then scale back down later on. Super awesome. If you're not a Horizon user, my friends that use Citrix are in luck. We are now on the Citrix Ready Marketplace for VMware Cloud on AWS. So if you're a Citrix shop today, we got you covered. So you can do some of the same things that you can do with Horizon in terms of scaling and stuff like that with Citrix. For my data center nerds out there that love different certifications and compliance, we've just, in addition to all the other certifications, the SOC 1 and SOC 2 compliance are now listed on all of our certifications. All right, so here's where we get into some of the cool developer things that we're doing. There are 3 major, let me go back here, 3 major things that we have. So first of all, Cloud Assembly, Service Broker, and Code Stream. So if you know me, I'm a huge proponent for automation. Oren knows this, but I love automation, I love APIs, and I think we should automate and make more efficient everything possible, sort of abstract that down. And that's what these 3 technologies do for us. So first of all, Cloud Assembly. We should not be building application stacks manually anymore. We should be able to find the patterns, create a blueprint from these, and then create this repeatable process, this orchestration to stand these up. So Cloud Assembly allows you to do that. You can create your own custom blueprints, or you can go to the marketplace, and we actually have blueprints for different applications for you to consume. The next is Service Broker. So build this out a little bit here. One more, there we go. So now that we have these blueprints created, we might have blueprints in different places. So we might have it through Cloud Assembly. We might be AWS customers and have things through Cloud Foundation. But Service Broker actually allows us to put all that stuff in a catalog and then give our users self-service cloud, essentially, to build these things up. But we still want to maintain governance as the IT department. You know, we need to make sure that they're following security rules, cost rules, and stuff like that. Keep talking. Thank you, sir. And then we want to be able to. No, you messed me. I got it. Don't touch. We also now we live in a multi-cloud world too, right? So not only do we want to allow them to deploy on-prem, but now that we have the flexibility, that elasticity, that scalability with VMware Cloud on AWS, we may want to let them deploy onto the cloud as well. So that's Service Broker. And then the last of those three features is CodeStream. Code pipelines for your development team are not a strategic advantage. We shouldn't be spending our time on this stuff. We have abstracted this out and automated a lot of this. And CodeStream is an awesome tool. In addition, you can put CodeStream on VMware Cloud on AWS. And when your dev team needs more test capacity and stuff like that, sort of on an hourly or daily basis, the cloud is a perfect place for them to sort of scale up and scale back down. So the VMware Cloud Provider Hub, you know, I love talking about our, you know, these third-party tools and, you know, our partners. There's a lot of cool SaaS solutions out there today, and whether it's internal to VMware, so VMware Wavefront, if anybody hasn't seen that yet, Wavefront is super cool, but we also have services from companies like F5 that are sort of one-click subscribe and set up. So that's sort of that SaaS offering portion. For maybe companies that don't have a SaaS offering, but you still love their tool, you still love their application, we also have the VMware Cloud Marketplace. Again, one-click purchase and deploy, and there are a ton of well-known applications out there for you. Okay. So, I want everybody to do me a favor here. Pull out your phone and scan that QR code. Save that tab open for later. This is reading time when you're eating paella or having some sangria later on. You can sort of look through this. There are two time-limited things here that you really need to pay attention to and think about. The first is the single host SDDC. So if you're really unsure about whether VMware Cloud on AWS is right for you, this is a great way to just sort of dip your toe in the water, right? The second one, if you want to take advantage of that 3-host cluster for the price of 2 hosts, this is a good way to start a conversation with your boss. Okay, a couple more. Okay, and then I got one more for you. Ready? Here we go. We also have a VMware Site Recovery promotion going on. Oren, do you want to explain a little bit about this one?
So this is going to start from January, and that's basically what this will give you is the first 200 customers are going to get the first 200 VMs protected for free. This is stackable with the rest of the promotions we have, so the 50% off, all the rest of it, and the 3 for 2, all that's stackable. So if you're interested, scan this, get on the interest list, and we'll let you know when the promotion is active. Okay, so that gets you 90 days of free protection for VMs, up to 200 VMs.
Couple more seconds. Okay. All right. So as we've said time and time again, I think throughout this we're working, on a very frequent cadence. I like using the word frequent because we're constantly coming out with new services and features on VMware Cloud on AWS. We're constantly using newer versions of vSphere. And we'd love to talk to you about this. So you can learn more here. Give us a shout on Twitter using that hashtag, or follow us. So that certainly helps us out to register, figure out who's interested and who wants to talk.
One more thing to mention is that our roadmap is on our website. So you can actually go to the website and see the roadmap and see what we're planning, what we've shipped. So this is not a lot of companies do that. So go on the website and take a look at the roadmap.
And the last thing, please help us out by filling out the survey. If we were completely terrible at explaining things, we want to know about it. We want to get better. Just like we get feedback for VMware Cloud on AWS, Orrin and I love feedback about how we can be better speakers, how we can convey information better. So the survey really helps us out. If we're doing a good job, you can let us know too. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming and learning about all the new stuff that we're working on.
Thank you, and we'll be here for questions afterwards.